Derek had always been the kind of traveler who distrusted anything that looked polished or too mainstream. While his friends relied on TripAdvisor, Hostel World, or Google Maps reviews, he would scoff at their choices and brag about finding the real deal by digging deeper, always insisting that the truth was never on the surface. For him, the dark web was more than a dangerous curiosity. It was an untamed library where real experiences lived, uncensored, raw, and sometimes terrifying. That's where he found her. The username was simple: Marla_sleeps here. Her posts were scattered across obscure forums, buried under layers of encryption and passwords, but once Derek found one, he found dozens. She wrote about hostels all over Europe, Asia, and South America. Not like typical reviewers, though. She didn't list pros and cons. Instead, she painted stories. Her descriptions were vivid, intoxicating. Reading them felt less like scanning a travel review and more like stepping into someone's private diary. She described tiny details no one else would notice. In one post about a rundown hostel in Krakow, she wrote, "The fan in the kitchen buzzes like an insect nest, and the shadows from the blades stutter. Across the floor, like they're trying to run away." Derek could almost hear the hum, see the flickering shadows. In another post about a Prague hostel, she wrote, "The bunks scream when anyone turns in their sleep, as if the wood remembers pain. The walls are thin, but it's not the neighbors you hear. It's something inside the plaster." It was eerie, strange, yet addictively compelling. What hooked Derek the most wasn't just the words, it was her voice. The way she wrote was personal, like she wasn't just describing a place, but inviting the reader into her world. She gave life to lifeless things: buzzing fans, peeling wallpaper, creaking doors. She turned shoddy hostels into haunted sanctuaries and made every room feel like it had secrets waiting to be uncovered. Derek couldn't stop reading. Each night, after long hours at his job, he'd sit hunched over his laptop in the dark, scrolling through Marla's posts. He started bookmarking them, copying them into a private document, almost like he was collecting pieces of her. He wanted to know where she'd been, where she was going next. He wanted to follow her path. When she mentioned Krakow, he booked Krakow. When she described Prague, he planned Prague. It felt like a private trail she had left for him, breadcrumbs scattered across continents. At first, he convinced himself it was just curiosity, a game of travel roulette. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. He wasn't just following hostels, he was following her. The unsettling part was how accurate she always was. When Derek arrived at the hostel in Krakow, the kitchen fan did buzz like a hive. The receptionist even apologized for it, saying it had been broken for years. When he stayed in Prague, the bunk beds did groan and wail with every movement, so much that he barely slept. Each time he experienced these places exactly as she had written, it was like she was whispering into his ear, guiding him through the night. And then there was the strange reply. On one of the forums, buried in a long thread, someone had asked her, "How do you travel so much? You're everywhere at once. What's your secret?" The response made Derek's skin prickle. "I don't anymore. But I still write." At first, he thought it was just sarcasm, a clever way of saying she'd slowed down. But the phrasing lingered in his mind. "I don't anymore. Why write it like that? And how could someone who didn't travel anymore keep describing places with such detail, accuracy, and freshness?" The more Derek thought about it, the less it made sense. He looked for photos, but none of her posts had any. No selfies, no snapshots of hostels, no proof she'd ever been there. Just words. Beautiful, haunting words. One night he scrolled through her earliest posts. They went back years, further than he expected. She had reviewed hostels that no longer existed, shut down after accidents or fires. In one, she wrote, "The staircase here feels like it leads nowhere." Maybe it does, but I'll climb it anyway. That hostel had burned down 4 years ago, killing 2 people. Derek leaned back from his laptop, pulse racing. He told himself it was coincidence, just eerie phrasing that matched tragedy. But in his gut, something darker was stirring. He wasn't sure if he was following a traveler at all. He closed his laptop and whispered into the dark, as though she might somehow hear. By the time Derek reached Budapest, he was no longer just curious. He was consumed. Each step of his journey followed Marla's ghostly breadcrumbs, each hostel another stage in a story he felt he was only half invited to. He arrived at a narrow building tucked between 2 bars, the kind of place you wouldn't look at twice unless you knew it was there. Marla had described it in uncanny detail. The curtains are too heavy for the tiny windows, so the daylight looks bruised before it enters. The receptionist always forgets your name, but remembers your face, like he's seen you before in another life. The receptionist was an older woman that day, her face pale and tired, but when Derek checked in, he couldn't help but test her. "Hey, does the name Marla ring a bell?" She might have stayed here a while ago. The woman froze, her eyes darting up to his. For a moment, Derek thought she was going to scold him, tell him not to joke about things like that. Instead, she leaned across the counter, her voice dropping into a whisper. "That's impossible." Derek laughed nervously. "Why impossible?" The woman stared hard at him, then at the empty registration log as if searching for something. "Because a girl with that name. She checked in 6 years ago, young, traveling alone. But she never checked out. We searched her room, the police came, she was just gone. No one ever found her." Derek felt his stomach drop. His first instinct was to argue, to say maybe it was another Marla. But the look on the receptionist's face silenced him. He signed the form quickly and hurried upstairs to his dorm room, trying to shake the chill that had wrapped itself around his spine. The dorm was empty when he entered. 6 bunks, unmade, the air stale. He dropped his backpack onto the lower bed in the corner and was about to leave when he noticed something sitting neatly on his pillow. A piece of folded paper. Heart pounding, he picked it up and unfolded it. The handwriting was small, looping, delicate. "The windows here never open. Did you notice?" The air doesn't leave Derek's throat went dry. He hadn't told anyone about Marla. Not here. Not in Krakow. Not in Prague. The only place her name existed in connection to him was inside his head, his laptop, his late-night reading. Yet the note sat there, as if waiting. That night, unable to sleep, he scrolled through her forum posts again, desperate for answers. He searched for threads mentioning her, hoping someone else had noticed the strangeness. And that's when he saw it. Recent posts, new replies. One user had written, "Why are her reviews still going up? I thought she died." Another responded, "She did." Everyone knows it, but her reviews never stopped. They just keep appearing. Derek's fingers hovered over the keyboard before he typed, "How do you know she's dead?" The answer came minutes later. It was in the news. Hostel in Budapest. Girl vanished. They searched the city. Nothing. People say her account's just a glitch, but the posts aren't old. They're fresh, like someone's still writing. His chest tightened as he scrolled. That's when he saw it. Her latest review, time-stamped yesterday. His eyes scanned the text, and the blood drained from his face. "There's a new boy here. He thinks he's following me. He doesn't know I've been waiting. It wasn't just a review. It was about him. It was to him." The walls of the hostel seemed to close in around him. The buzz of the hallway lights outside his door suddenly sounded like a swarm of insects crawling closer. He forced himself to shut his laptop, telling himself it was a trick, maybe someone pretending to be her. But when he lay down, staring up at the underside of the bunk above, he couldn't shake the words. That night, he swore he wasn't alone. The top bunk should have been empty. He'd checked, the mattress bare. But sometime after 2 a.m., the springs above him groaned, a weight settling into place. His breath caught. Then he heard it. Slow, shallow breathing, not his own. He lay frozen, eyes open in the dark, counting the seconds between each breath, waiting for something, anything, to reveal itself. But when morning came, the bunk was empty again. Shaken and sleep-deprived, Derek knew he couldn't just dismiss it anymore. Marla wasn't just a name on a forum. She wasn't just a clever writer with a strange way of phrasing things. She was something else now, something that still walked the halls of these hostels, still leaving notes, still breathing in the dark. And for some reason, she had chosen him. Derek fled Budapest before the sun rose. He didn't even wait for breakfast, just stuffed his things into his backpack and slipped out the door like a thief. His hands shook the entire tram ride to the station, his reflection in the window pale and hollow. He told himself distance was the answer. If he could get far enough away from the places Marla had written about, the spell would break. It had to. He boarded a train to Vienna, sinking into his seat with a fragile sense of relief. He kept telling himself, "You're being paranoid. She's not real. You've been reading too much. It's just coincidence." But as the train clattered through the countryside, he couldn't stop checking his phone, the forums, her page, the thread where people still whispered about her. And then, like clockwork, there it was, another review, posted under Marla_sleeps here. The timestamp read less than an hour ago. His heart thudded when he read the words. He thinks he's safe now. But the next place has yellow curtains. He'll like it. Derek almost dropped his phone. He hadn't even booked his Vienna hostel yet. His whole plan had been to choose something at the last minute. But when he opened the booking site, scrolling through the options, one picture froze him in place. A dorm room with pale yellow curtains, sunlight spilling through them like stained glass. He wanted to avoid it, to choose anywhere else. But something gnawed at him. What if the post was already fixed? What if no matter where he went, she would describe it ahead of time? In the end, against all logic, he booked the yellow-curtained hostel. Some part of him was past resistance. He wasn't traveling for himself anymore. He was traveling for her. The hostel was quiet when he arrived. Too quiet. The receptionist barely spoke as he handed over the key. The dorm was exactly like the picture. 6 beds, faded yellow curtains, a weak smell of detergent in the air. For a moment, Derek just stood there, gripping the key so tightly the edges bit into his palm. By evening, the room was full of strangers, backpackers talking about day trips, trading stories. Derek tried to join in, but his ears kept straining for something else. A whisper, a breath, anything out of place. He lay in bed that night staring at the curtains, glowing faintly from the streetlight outside. He didn't want to close his eyes, but exhaustion forced him under. That's when the dream came. In it, he was scrolling through reviews, but the words weren't on a screen. They floated in the air around him, curling like smoke. Each line was about him. He hasn't unpacked. He doesn't trust the lock on his bag. He's sweating through his sheets. The words kept updating in real time, describing his every move, his every thought. And then, slowly, they shifted. He's drifting off. He doesn't know I'm standing over him. He doesn't know I'm waiting. He jolted awake, gasping, heart racing. The room was silent. Everyone else still slept. But when he looked toward the curtains, he swore he saw the faint outline of a figure standing between them, watching. He blinked, and it was gone. By the next day, Derek was unraveling. He tried to delete his accounts, wipe his laptop, even considered smashing his phone. But no matter what he did, the reviews kept appearing, not just on the forums anymore. They appeared in his drafts folder, in his notes app, even as unsent messages in his email. Always written in the same delicate handwriting, always updating like a live feed of his existence. He turned to alcohol one night, desperate to numb himself. Sitting at a bar in Vienna, he asked the bartender casually, "Ever hear of a girl named Marla? Backpacker, maybe?" The man stopped wiping the counter. His eyes narrowed. After a long silence, he said quietly, "You should stop asking questions like that. People say she writes to keep herself alive. If no one reads her, she fades. But if you follow too closely..." He leaned in, his voice almost a growl. "She takes you with her." Derek stumbled back to the hostel, drunk and terrified. He splashed water on his face in the bathroom, staring at himself in the mirror. His reflection looked worn, almost like someone else entirely. Then he saw it. Scrawled across the mirror in neat, looping handwriting was a sentence he already knew before he finished reading it. "You've read enough. Now it's your turn to write." He staggered back, eyes wide, but the words didn't vanish. They clung to the glass, waiting. The next morning, new posts appeared under Marla's username. But this time, they weren't hers. They were his. Reviews of the yellow curtains, the smell of detergent, the sound of his own heartbeat in the silence of the dorm. His name, Derek's, was tagged at the bottom of each one. Travelers reading the forums weeks later were confused. The style was the same, poetic, eerie, uncomfortably vivid. But the voice had shifted, like a duet between two people. Marla's ghostly prose intertwined with someone new, someone alive. Or at least, he had been alive. And just like her, Derek was now posting reviews from places no one ever saw him leave.